Check out the Alternative Games Twitter account, link in the description.
Hello and welcome to a new video, and welcome to my review of Mega Man 5. So, with Mighty Number 9 recently coming out and not having the greatest reception, I thought it would be interesting to go back to some of the older Mega Men. So specifically I'm going to go back to Mega Man 5, which is the only one that I've played. So without further ado, let's get on with it.
Mega Man 5 was the first Mega Man game that I ever played, and to date is the only one. This is unfortunate, as the game has somewhat sullied my outlook on the series as a whole. I know many people adore this series, but if this title is anything to go by, it's not for me. Firstly, I would like to explain briefly why I chose Mega Man 5 as my entry point. In advance of the release of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, I decided to acquaint myself with some of the video game series that were featured in the game that I had not yet tried. This led me to becoming a fan of many of these series, such as Punch-Out and F-Zero. When picking a Mega Man game, I decided to opt for a classic NES title, as they were only £5 on the Virtual Console, and they were the titles upon which Smash Bros. Was drawing most heavily. Around this time, I saw a video made by Gaijin Goomba of Game Exchange and Game Theory fame, in which he proclaimed that Mega Man 5 was his favourite Mega Man game, and he seemed to have many valid points. In light of this, I purchased Mega Man 5 and oh boy, was I disappointed. First and foremost, though, let me look at the good points. The game has a catchy array of songs in its score. While not as remarkable as earlier entries in the series, the soundtrack to Mega Man 5 is good overall. The game's controls are also tight and responsive. This is one of the few areas where the game can truly compete with modern games. These tight controls mean that when the game is mastered, it is truly a spectacle to behold. The finesse that can be displayed when an experienced player breezes through these levels, sliding and shooting with perfectly timed button presses, is astounding. Also, the idea to create a puzzle where stages can be made easier by choosing the optimal order in which to complete them in was an inspired idea, although that was not something pioneered by this title. On the flip side, the game's level design, while creative at times, is indicative of the trappings that hamstring old games in their pursuit of modern audiences. The placement of enemies is all too frequently unforgiving and unpredictable. Any man, woman or child capable of beating this game on their first attempt needs to play the lottery more often, as time and time again I was presented with challenges I could not have possibly predicted, much less avoided. The game relies far too heavily on pattern memorization, which is frankly frustrating, repetitive, and ultimately not worth the effort. This, coupled with the length of the levels, makes this game a slog. The game's graphics bear a washed out colour palette. While the sprites are detailed, I think games with simpler graphics from the NES days have aged better. With this being one of the later NES titles, it is clear to see that the game is pushing the system to its limits, and not in the best way possible. Just look at this. In spite of this, instances where the game lags ironically makes the game more playable in some ways. Overall, Mega Man 5 is a game that has not aged well, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who isn't already a fan of the series. In recent years, the Sonic games have come under scrutiny for their archaic design, yet Mega Man seems to have escaped this barrage of criticism. The series occupies a strange space. The elements of the games that are flawed are either superfluous, such as the graphics, or are rarely considered by classic fans of the series, such as the difficulty and strange placement of enemies, as they are unnoticeable to people who've played through the games many times and know where the enemies are. Thus, older fans do not scrutinize the games as harshly and continue to recommend them to younger players. I'm not trying to say that these games were bad in their time, nor am I trying to deny them their place in video game history, but industry standards have moved on, while these games are stuck in the past.
So yeah, Mega Man 5, I really don't think it's aged that well. Obviously I don't have any sort of reference point for Mega Man 2 or any of those. Maybe they're good. I think the X series is something I'd like to try someday. But anyway, for the moment, please comment down below, tell me what you think of classic Mega Man games, or if you think I'm completely wrong and I need to try X game. Also, please like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you have not already.